Ron DeSantis just gave an exclusive interview on Newsmax on Thursday night. He did a very good job. It was his first big public interview. I guess he went on Trey Gowdy, but this was like the first really big one, I would think, since his announcement speech, or the day thereof, his announcement speech. This was Thursday night. It was a great speech. We're going to break it down today on today's episode of you know the thing.
In a world gone crazy, common sense, logic, and Christian values are new. Adam Boyer is here to provide you all three in The Adam Boyer Show.
So today is probably not going to be a very long episode, but I just wanted to get on here, break this down. I felt like this was something that should be talked about. Trump had some responses to it, which were pretty funny, but cheap shots maybe. We'll see. But we're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss maybe more about DeSantis on Trump. We'll talk about the panel that was on Newsmax afterwards. But first, we're going to touch on the DeSantis interview itself. And I'm going to say right off the bat, he was very poised and he gave great answers to the questions and overall just handled the interview like a pro. He was... He did not avoid the questions at all. He was, he didn't try to dodge the questions or anything. He was very good. He answered the questions. He answered them directly. He answered them tactfully. And, of course, there was a lot of questions asked by Eric Bolling. It was his show. And there was a lot of questions asked by Eric Bolling about Trump. And he was actually quite complimentary of Trump. He complimented him at the proper times because he doesn't want to alienate the Trump base, and he doesn't want to come off as the insulting guy Trump is. He's kind of trying to run himself as like a Ronald Reagan, but even better, and a fighter like Trump, but even better, like the best of all worlds. That's the way DeSantis is trying to position himself in this primary. And so far, is it working? I don't know. The polls don't say so right now, but polling means absolutely nothing this far out. We'll touch on that a little bit more. He was quite complimentary of Trump, but he did take a couple very well-timed shots at Trump, mostly for siding with Disney. He pointed out how Trump has been siding with Disney over their wokeness and gay agenda in Florida when DeSantis has been fighting back against them. Nikki Haley, of course, another presidential candidate, she has been talking about how Disney's welcome in South Carolina because she wants business. And I'll tell you what, if that doesn't sound like the classic establishment Republican to answer to everything, yes, we want to support our businesses, I don't know what does. All to see that GDP go up, baby. It's all about GDP, not about anything else. So, yes, DeSantis is handling the Disney situation well. Hopefully he continues to chop away at them. The more money they lose, the happier I am. So another question Eric Bolling asked DeSantis was about Ukraine, and this is one issue where I think Trump does have the advantage over DeSantis is foreign policy, simply because, not DeSantis' fault, but Trump has been president before, and so he has foreign policy experience, and he has a very good record on foreign policy, whereas DeSantis, by virtue of just being a governor, albeit one of the nation's largest states, has no foreign policy experience. I guess you could say foreign policy a little bit in that, they just signed a bill to prevent the Communist Party of China buying lands in Florida, so that's a very good step. So, I guess you could say there's a little bit of foreign policy experience there, but official foreign policy, DeSantis really doesn't have it. But he did say his goal is to have the Ukraine war de-escalated. He doesn't give an exact plan on how he wanted to do that. But he did say in January 2025, he said if it's not over by January 2025, he will get it over sometime during that month. He said, because Trump has said he'll end the war in 24 hours. DeSantis said that's probably a little bit ambitious. Trump is known for, talking up a big game a little bit and not always quite delivering, being a little bit over-promising, under-delivering, so to speak. That's not a shot at Trump. Trump just likes to talk things up. But so he said maybe not quite 24 hours, but within January 2025, he would want to have the war in Ukraine greatly de-escalated. On the topic of foreign policy and communist China, he did call China the greatest threat to America right now. It's just interesting, not transgenderism, nothing like that. He said communist China is the greatest threat to America right now. And he mentioned partnering with Pacific allies, such as Taiwan and Japan, to check China's expansionism. When asked about China invading Taiwan, DeSantis stated that he wants to bolster power in the Pacific, bolster military power and strength, and support Taiwan with additional weaponry to help them defend themselves. And basically, he kind of had a mini conversation within his interview with Bolling about Taiwan and China, and said the best defense is a strong offense, and reiterated multiple times that we don't want a war with China. Moving on, he was asked about the January 6th prisoners, if he would consider pardoning them, and including President Trump if he's actually ever imprisoned. And he said he would absolutely consider doing both, pardoning both January 6th prisoners and Trump, which would be incredible. That's one of the biggest things if I were to be president, which obviously I'm not going to be anytime soon. But if I were to be president, that's one of the biggest things I would do. So yeah, it was a very good interview for him. The last question Bolling asked him, they had another sort of mini conversation about it, was Politico recently released a hit piece on Casey DeSantis, a very nasty hit piece. And when he was asked about that, he called Politico bottom of the barrel type folks, and said it was a typical hatchet job, and he's exactly right. He said he was very complimentary of Casey DeSantis, which it sounds, quid pro quo. Yeah, he's complimentary of his wife, but he very highly praised her. And I think it was a way of saying she'd be a very incredible first lady for the country, and I would agree with that. He said his wife was a potent political ally, and that the media fears her because she's loved by the people and effective. He said, quote, if she was a Democrat, the media would be treating her like she was the greatest thing since sliced bread because she's smart and beautiful. And that is a very good way of saying it. It's funny because DeSantis does seem to kind of resonate with your everyday sort of guy, which he pretty much is. When he used the phrases like the greatest thing since sliced bread, I've never heard anyone in politics use that until he did that. So it's just something I appreciate because it's something I hear all the time and I've used. So the interview went really well. I wouldn't be surprised if Newsmax's ratings were up for that time slot, up to around 500,000 or something. They're consistently beating CNN out now and are now the third most watched primetime show, so that's incredible. And I think DeSantis' polling numbers are going to go up a couple points because of the interview as well. And that leads us to some polling issues. Obviously, DeSantis has been down by 40 points to Trump in a bunch of polls and stuff like that. Polling does not matter. My dad, he put it a very good way. He said, polling this far out from a primary or presidential election or whatever, polling this far out is like trying to predict the weather a year out, but it's even more useless. And I agree with that. Polling means nothing. The only polling that matters, maybe even just a little bit, is the polling from Iowa, South Carolina, and New Hampshire, which are your three, obviously your big states during the primary. And on the note of polling and just kind of additional side notes before we wrap up, afterwards, Bolling had a panel on of Sebastian Gorka, who, of course, huge Trump slappy, and then Ken Cuccinelli, who's a former attorney general who also ran for governor here in Virginia. He's a very good guy. He's headed up DeSantis' super PAC. And he was on with Gorka, and they were debating after the interview. And one of the ways he got under Gorka's skin was Cooch said Trump randomly hired every fourth person who opposed his agenda. And that is exactly right, because that's what everyone is feeling. The conservatives who aren't just Trump slappies and praise Trump for everything he does and for just walking around and breathing, that is exactly right. Because, yes, Trump seemed to just randomly hire, like Cooch said, every fourth person who randomly opposed his agenda, and it made no sense, and he wouldn't clear those folks out, which is one of the big reasons I'm a DeSantis guy this year, is that Trump, he talked about draining the swamp and everything, cleaning out the deep state. He had the chance to do it, and he kept people in the FBI like, I just forgot his name, Jim Comer, I think is his name. Maybe I'm getting that name mixed up. I'll have to fact check myself on that later. But yeah, he kept people in like that. He let Anthony Fauci have effectively control of the country for a while. That is a big reason I cannot support Trump in 2024 over DeSantis. But back to this, it was very funny to watch him get under Sebastian Gorka's skin. He got extremely ticked off when Ken criticized Trump for attacking pro-lifers. That was extremely funny because Trump did basically say, okay, look, there's a lot of folks in the pro-life community that think the 6-week abortion ban in Florida went too far, okay, went a little too far, and that was absolutely ridiculous. But Cuccinelli reiterated, he said he is not here because he's against Trump, but DeSantis' record has him standing head and shoulders above everyone else in this opportunity for America, and he's exactly right. That is why I'm a DeSantis guy. Lastly, Sebastian Gorka did remind him, he said, DeSantis has no business attacking Trump when Trump is 40 points ahead of him in the polls. And then Cooch, perfect response. He reminded everyone that at this time in 2015, Donald Trump was polling less than 1% in the polls, but he did not their campaign didn't throw up the white flag then, and as Cuccinelli said, he wouldn't have wanted them to, and what do you know? Trump was president for 4 years. So folks, that is all I have. That's my analysis of this interview. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. Give me some debate. Are you Trump people? Are you DeSantis people? Why? Let me know. We can chat in the comments. If you did enjoy the video, found it informative and helpful, I would appreciate it if you drop a like. But, folks, that is all I have for now. This is the Adam Boyer Show. Thanks for watching. I will see y'all later.